Hello, my name. Okay. Hello, my name is Vera Traver, and I am with YWCA Labyrinth Outreach, and I would like to welcome everybody to the Reentry Council meeting. So we're going to just start with doing our introductions, and just a brief introduction of yourselves and your agency and your interest of being here. So I think everybody knows who I am, and I have not written down all of you guys' names. So if we can just kind of go in order, or can we start with Adri?
Hi, my name is Audrey. I am finished up being an intern with Jackie at the jail. I loved my internship and I wanted to get more involved with reentry and the jail review council and all of those other facets. I'm currently going to graduate in about a year. So I'm looking towards different master's programs and different ways to integrate myself within this community, whether that's more of a social work side or a criminal justice side. So if you have any questions, definitely feel free. I can put my email in the chat because I am looking for a job. So there's that. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. So
Thanks, Audrey. And then can we go with Don?
Hi, I'm Dr. Dawn Eichner from ISU, and I'm also a research consultant with YWCA Labyrinth. Happy to see so many familiar faces today and to see that the council's off the ground and running.
Thank you. Gaynette?
Hi, everyone. It's so good to see everybody. You all look great. Gosh. Okay, right, COVID my butt, right? So I am Gaynette. I am with Prairie State Legal Services. I am the community advocate. So what I'll be doing is just trying to make sure that I can assist you all as much as I possibly can. With sealing and expunging, any evictions, anything that I can help with legally, especially with working with reentry. That is something I'm super passionate about. And then also just being here to get a smile. Let me see them. So that's about it. You all, I will put my information in the chat. I know most of you all, but for those who do not, you all can kind of reach out to me and learn a little bit more about what I do.
Thanks, Gaynette. Susan?
Hi, I'm Susan Shafer, and I'm on the McLean County Board. I'm chair of the Health Committee, and I wear a bunch of other hats in that position. And I am currently leading the update to the Mental Health Action Plan.
Thank you. And then I think if we don't, I'm not for sure if we're gonna be having more people jump in or not, but right now we're just gonna turn it over to Toy so he can introduce our speaker, which I'm not seeing right now, but Toy.
I don't think we entered, so we're gonna go ahead with our introductions. Are we gonna introduce everybody? Just go ahead and go forward. Why don't we go ahead? Go ahead, Dorothy. You want to introduce yourself? Tell them what you do.
Certainly, Toy.
Oh, I didn't see Dorothy. Sorry, Dorothy.
No hard feelings. My name's Dorothy Davis, and I'm a regional coordinator for Parents Care and Share program at Children's Home and Aid. So I do a lot of things. I have a fatherhood coalition. I have the Blue Bow campaign as well. I chair that. So, and I'm glad to be here.
Thanks, Dorothy. Linda?
Good afternoon, everyone. Linda Foster, President, NAACP, National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. And that means all people, because we all got a color. Thank you so much for hosting this. Coming by way of a social worker, past member of the jail committee. Our organization have a legal redress. So we run the gamut of looking at all the human elements in which we thrive to be successful in. So I look forward to hearing more about this program and this council.
Thanks, Linda. I appreciate it. Agent Commander Dittmer.
Good afternoon. I'm with Parole, the Decatur office, which is also the GO. And this is my first meeting, so I'll do a lot of listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Commander Dittmer. John, is that John Furman?
Yeah, perfect. I'm a police officer with the Bloomington Police Department. I'm a public affairs officer. I see probably half of you guys when pre-COVID all the time. I'm mostly here the same to just listen, and I really don't have any other input. I can give like a law enforcement perspective, but I'm just here to listen. Gonna see what's going on. If there's any way I can help, I can. If not, then I can just listen.
John, I appreciate you coming on. Taylor?
Hello, I'm Taylor Davis. I'm the behavioral health specialist at the health department in McLean County.
Thank you. Michelle?
Hello, I'm Michelle Cope from the Bloomington Public Library, and we are looking at different ways that we can involve the library with the McLean County Jail, which we feel like is our neighbor. And so we've met with Jackie and Audrey to think of different ways that we can start some initiatives. And so we're very excited about those.
Thanks, Michelle. Thanks for joining. Jacqueline?
Hello, sorry I missed the first part. I working on a project here. Yeah, what were you doing? I'm just introducing yourself.
Just introduce yourself.
Sorry.
Who you are and the work you do in the community.
Oh, okay. Jackie Mathias, I'm the Inmate Services and Behavioral Health Director here at the McLean County Jail. Most of my work is obviously while they're in custody. But we, with Inmate Services, are trying really hard to redirect ourselves into being more re-entry, more preparing for release, those kinds of things. So I have already from this council in our 2 meetings have set up meetings or trainings with several of you so that we can try to get some things going. So we're pretty excited. Bethany is in court right now, but she will be on in just a little bit, my case manager. So.
Thank you, Jackie. I appreciate you joining. Natasha?
Hi there, I'm Natasha Nunu-Ponder. I am the Community Integration Coordinator at the McLean County Center for Human Services. We work with, in my department, with adults that are chronically and severely mentally ill. I am also part of the Recovery Court program dealing with mental health court. So reentry is something that is near and dear to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Natasha. Kara?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I am the director for YWCA's Labyrinth program, and I'm just so excited to have you all on here today and look forward to seeing what we can do when we put all of our brains together and resources. I just think it'll be a great addition to the community. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Kara. Colleen?
Hey, I'm Colleen. I work with Michelle at the library, and yeah, we're here to see how we can help with reentry efforts. So,
thank you. Amy?
Hello, Amy Hancock. I am the Behavioral Health Program Manager at the McLean County Health Department.
Thank you so much. Feli? Did I pronounce that right?
Faili.
Sorry.
That's all right. I'm Faili Sebastian. I'm a retired clinical psychologist. I started Labyrinth in 2008 with Mary Campbell, and we turned it over to the YWCA in 2016. Currently, I'm helping Mary with her new program called Dreams Are Possible. And next month, I'm gonna launch another project called Extraordinary Women here in McLean County. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Thank you so much. I think I got everybody. Let me introduce myself. My name is Toy Beasley. I'm with TAS, Treatment Alternatives for Safer Communities. I am the Reentry Support Coordinator statewide, and I'm also a person who have been just as impacted. Today, I have the privilege to announce our speaker, Marlon Chamberlain. Marlon Chamberlain is with the Heartland Alliance. He's gonna come and talk to you about the Fully Free campaign. But first of all, before he jump in and talk about the Fully Free campaign, Marlon, tell us a little about yourself and how you got involved in the work you're doing.
Thanks, Toy. Well, once again, my name is Marlon Chamberlain, and I am the campaign manager for the Fully Free campaign. And how I sort of got connected to this work, in 2002, I was sentenced to a 20-year federal prison sentence. And in 2010, with the passing of the Fair Sentencing Act, my sentence was reduced from 20 to 14 years. And so I ended up serving 10.5 years in federal prison, and I've been home now since May 29th of 2012. And so really my journey started in prison around just like policy and how important policy impacts individuals and communities. And with the passing of the Fair Sentencing Act, I sort of committed myself, like this is even before I was released. I had made a commitment that once I was released, that I would get involved in some sort of community, like organizing work, or whether it was with a faith-based organization, but I wanted to get involved to sort of help change policy that would really support individuals after incarceration and would also remove barriers to housing and employment and educational and other opportunities that people face after incarceration. So initially, I started off as a leader with the faith-based organization called the Community Renewal Society. And I was doing organizing work in partnership with churches and directly impacted people for about 3 years. For a year as a leader. And then I was brought on staff as the lead organizer for an initiative called FORCE, which was an acronym for Fighting to Overcome Records and Create Equality. And from that, we went on to form the Rocky Coalition, which was another acronym that stands for Restoring Rights and Opportunities Coalition of Illinois, that was comprised of the Chicago Coalition for the Homeless, Community Renewal Society, Heartland Alliance, and Cabrini Green Legal Aid. And what was so unique and special about this coalition was that it was really made up of community folks, organizers who were on staff with the organizations, and then also the policy folks from each organization. So we were all able to learn from each other and really develop policy that was designed by all of us that could impact our community. And so in total, we passed 10 bills in total that either reduced or created opportunities for people after incarceration. And these 10 bills happened over probably a 6 to 7 year period. I think the biggest bill that we passed, or the most impactful, I think, is the sealing eligibility bill, which expanded the number of convictions that could be sealed after 3 years. And so outside of that, I was with CRS for 3 years, and then I transitioned to Heartland Alliance and was doing violence prevention work here in Inglewood, a community in Chicago. I did that for 3 years and then transitioned to the Shafer Foundation, where I helped build and establish the Alliance for Reentry and Justice. And then I started in this role as the campaign manager in March of this year. So I've only been in this role for a few months, but that is my short introduction.
Thank you, Marlon. I appreciate it. Before Marlon goes into his presentation, I just want to let everybody know that that we're bringing Marlon on because we want to educate you on what Fully Free campaign is to help reduce recidivism. I truly believe that the more education we put out in the community of what our people go through, I think that presenting something like this, we could help reduce recidivism. So like I said, thank you for coming in, Marlon. Thank you for the introduction and I'll let you take it from here.
Okay, let me share my, let me see if I can share my screen. Can everybody see this?
Yes, thank you, Marlon.
Yes.
Okay. Let me go to slideshow. Okay, so before I get started, I just wanted to follow up on something that Toy said. A couple things. One, this campaign is not a campaign where we intend to go around and to yell at people and to agitate people. This campaign is really to call people in to say, how can we begin to have conversations around how do we create opportunities after incarceration? And so we're looking to have a dialogue and really push through the rhetoric of it's the police fault, it's this person's fault. We want to push through the rhetoric to really have a real conversation around how can we put or create a system that really supports and really allows a person to really move forward with their lives. And so in June of 2020, Heartland Alliance released the Never Fully Free report, which really gives a thorough sort of outline of what all of these laws, well, actually there's 1,189 laws that really hinder people after incarceration. And I can share the link to this report after the presentation. But also I wanna, we included this quote because this is important to us. And this quote is by Glenn Martin, who is the founder of Just Leadership USA, which is a national organization that has a goal of cutting the prison population in half. I'm sorry, that was my alarm. We have the goal of the program is to reduce the prison population in half by 2030. But this quote says, those of us that are closest to the problem are closest to the solution, but furthest from the resources and power. And so really this campaign is really anchored in really developing and centering the voices of those that have been either formerly incarcerated or have an arrest record. And so we plan to invest a lot of resources in really developing leaders so that they can lead the work in their respective communities. This is not about me coming to Bloomington Normal to tell folks what's best for them in Bloomington Normal. This is saying, how can we bring resources to really develop leaders to lead the work, to lead the change in their respective communities? And so before I get started, so people with records like me are told to rebuild their lives without help while having to navigate a complicated web of laws that restrict our rights. And so what we've decided to call these, instead of calling them collateral consequences, we call them permanent punishments because we don't believe that these consequences were accidental. And so we define permanent punishments as legal penalties that create long-lasting, often permanent barriers to employment, housing, education, civic engagement, and also occupational licensing opportunities for people with arrest or people who have been convicted of a crime. So through our work with people with criminal records, we've heard about the incredible barriers that they face trying to find jobs, housing, and because of these laws that prevent employers from hiring them or landlords from renting to them. We knew we needed to find out more information about this issue that we're calling permanent punishments. And so I would also just add this because I think it's a great analogy. It says that the piling on of civil legal penalties, which result in everyday barriers to opportunities, can be overwhelming and traumatic to navigate, often resulting in civil death. Civil death is a notion from medieval England when people who are convicted of felonies lost virtually all of their civil rights and protections under the law. Unfortunately, people with records still face a modern version of civil death today. And so according to our data, our reports estimated that there are 3.3 million people, adults in Illinois, that have been arrested or convicted of a crime since 1979. All of these millions of people are living with permanent punishments or in the shadow of these permanent punishments every day. This is over 1/3 of the adults with records have a conviction record, and 1 in 5 adults with records have a felony conviction record. The most restrictive fathers reaching permanent punishments are targeted at people with conviction records, but especially felony conviction records. 1 in 5 adults were arrested but not convicted of a crime. Even though they were not convicted, arrest records still appear on some background checks and websites and carry with it a stigma that can make it harder to find employment or housing. And you'll also notice that this big box taking up almost half of the square, the 44% of people with records where we have no data on whether they were convicted or not. So our estimates as far as the 3.3 million may be very conservative because we don't have the data to actually track how many people have the actual arrest or conviction records. The majority of the permanent punishments are really related to employment. And we know that employment instability is a predictor of recidivism. Employers disproportionately discriminate against people of color with records. Job applicants with criminal records are much less likely to hear back from employers than applicants without a record. The penalty of having a criminal record is even larger for Black job seekers than for white job seekers. White applicants with criminal records receive more callbacks than all Black applicants, even those without criminal records. People with records describe encountering employment barriers from background checks, stigma, and years out of the labor market while they were incarcerated, and restrictions on their activities during probation, parole, or house arrest. These laws can also limit the geographical locations in which people can live and return to. They can make people ineligible for housing and shelters, veteran homes, and nursing homes. And they can also deny a person's inheritance through a transfer of property. Several of these sanctions permit landlords from conducting criminal history background checks. Surveys of people with records showing that nearly 80% of the respondents have been denied housing due to their records. This occurs even with minor offenses and offenses that are years old. Federal law restricts people with certain types of criminal records, notably drug offenses, from living in public or subsidized housing. Given the disproportionate impact of criminal records on people of color, the housing-related permanent punishments contribute to racialized patterns of housing instability, segregation, and homelessness. The combination of housing and employment permanent punishments keep many people with records in poverty and put them at the risk of homelessness. And at the same time, the experience of homelessness puts people at risk at criminal legal system involvement. These laws also enact permanent punishments by creating restrictions to grants and educational and job training opportunities. They also authorize background checks for admissions to training programs, colleges, master's and PhD programs, medical schools, and law schools, creating a chilling effect for people who have a criminal legal records to apply for these educational opportunities or these programs. Our research discovered that 75% of the criminal record background checks in Illinois are for educational access to degrees or programs in the public health field. This leads to worse educational outcomes. Compared to the general public, formerly incarcerated people are nearly twice as likely to have no GED or high school diploma, and more than half only hold a high school diploma or GED. Less than 4% of formerly incarcerated people hold a college degree compared to 29% of the US population. Individuals with criminal records also face barriers to licensure in both federal and often state law. Often state law will empower licensing authorities to deny applicants on the basis of a criminal record. The restrictions to occupational licensing severely limit post-education employment opportunities for individuals with a criminal record and serve as a significant deterrent to pursuing higher education. Okay, I must have hit something. There we go. When Black and Brown people finish their criminal legal system involvement, they are doubly stigmatized due to their race and criminal background. People of color with records who we interview describe the criminal legal system as a system full of injustices with laws in place to control them rather than to protect its residents. The vast majority of people involved with the criminal legal system identified as male. However, the fastest growing population is women identified. Black men make up 13% of the Illinois adult population, but make up 26.5% of all men arrested or convicted in Illinois. The racial disparity is even starker for Black women than it is for Black men. Black women make up 14.5% of all adult Illinois population, but make up 34.3% of all women arrested or convicted of a crime in Illinois. Women often end up involved with the criminal legal system for different reasons than men, such as surviving poverty or substance use. And permanent punishments may therefore have a uniquely gender impact on women. Of all people convicted of a property crime in Illinois, 23.9% were women, which is the highest proportion of women represented amongst all crime types reported here. All of the women convicted of these property crimes, 40.3% were Black, which is 2.8 times higher than the percent of adult women who are Black. Women are more likely than men to be the primary caregivers for their children. And so when women with criminal legal system involvement face barriers to self-sufficiency, that often means barriers to caring for their families. And so now that you've heard data and we've defined what is a permanent punishment, the question is, what are we going to do about it? And we simply say, get rid of them. And so before I introduce this slide, I do want to talk about, so in June, the weekend of Juneteenth, the Fully Free campaign had campaign launch events in Joliet, Aurora, Carbondale, Rockford, Illinois, and DeKalb, Illinois. And we also had our statewide virtual launch event on June 23rd. And really our goal, or sort of like theory of change, to address these permanent punishments simply starts with with centering the expertise of people who have been directly impacted by the criminal justice system. We want to build capacity of these leaders to lead the change in their respective communities. But we also want to partner and support, equip, and enhance coalitions and outreach efforts to advance these reform efforts, and also respond nimbly and strategically to policy and to the political environment. The third thing that we want to do is we want to craft multi-year legislation that really focuses on the root of this problem. We will advance a multi-year legislative strategy focused on really scrubbing the Illinois code while also continuing to support other advocacy efforts with our member organizations that are also part of the coalition. We also want to document this approach because the goal is really to document the lessons learned, the processes that we take, so that hopefully we can take this campaign nationally into other states to help them figure out how they can begin to eliminate these permanent punishments. And the last thing that's a part of our campaign strategy is really reconstructing the narrative about people with records and really empowering people to lead this work, but to also to come from under the shame and the stigma and the embarrassment that really having a record like that's associated with really having a record. And we also want to activate people. We want to educate people around what their rights are as a citizen, that they can vote and that they can also be a part of this process to really create change in our communities. And so how we plan to do it, and really this strategy was created from the ROSC Coalition, which says that the issues come from the community. So what we want to do is to make sure that we're constantly listening to the community and what they want. In this example, the community would be people directly impacted, the family members of people who are directly impacted, service providers who provide services to the directly impacted community. We want to hear from them on what are some of the solutions or policy that we can introduce to really eliminate these permanent punishments. We also want to train leaders to be at the decision-making table. I know a lot of times I've seen directly impacted people at the table, but they're not always necessarily a part of the decision-making process at tables. So we want to train people to bring value to these tables so that they can really help us build out a diverse coalition to lead this work across the state. We also make decisions at our coalition table and the steering committee. So the Fully Free Coalition, right now we meet bi-monthly, and we're also in the process of developing working groups in which individuals will be able to choose based on their interest and passion and what group they want to be a part of. But this is where our decisions are made at the coalition and steering committee meetings. We also, and this was in the past, so I don't know what the future will look like, but in the past, we would take weekly trips to Springfield by train, which we would prep leaders on the way to Springfield. We would have a roll call sheet so that we could keep track of which legislators are in support of our legislation, and that we could follow up appropriately based on if they had questions or concerns. But we would keep track, and each organization that was a part of ROSC would commit to being in Springfield on specific weeks. And so this sort of strategy is not set in stone, but this is something that we've used in the past that was very successful in our work with ROSC. And then also it says lobbying is done by leaders and not the lobbyists. And so instead of leveraging and using lobbyists, we would train our leaders to talk to their elected officials around what issues mean the most to them and how can we begin to build relationships with our elected officials to really work in partnership with them to create change. Why people with records as leaders? And so the first thing we would say is people with records are experts of our own experiences. And in this campaign, the goal is for us to be the architects and not the subjects. So we want to make sure that people are able to tell their own stories, but also give them an opportunity to lead the work and really show and demonstrate to people that not only do we have expertise in regards to just the system, but that we can develop strategy, that we can learn and really operate within the legislative process and build relationships with people throughout the community to really lead this work. The second thing I would say is no one tells our stories better than us, and we can create and really own our narrative. I know if here in Chicago, if you watch the news, the first 5 minutes of every news show is about what's happening bad in our communities. And so what we want to highlight is the work that's happening that no one is talking about, that is really being led like by myself and Toy and other individuals that are directly impacted. And then we are the ones that can really shift the narrative because we know the work that we're involved in, and we know what the vision and the goals of what we're trying to do. And so just to sort of share with some of the wins and the bills that we passed, HB 4360 was a bill that removed lifetime barriers for individuals to work within schools. And so now there's a 7-year waiting period, but prior to that, there was no way a person was banned from working in the school. And when I say working in the school, I mean, even as a janitor, as a chef, as a chaperone, individuals were barred for life from being able to work in the school if they had any sort of conviction. The same with SB 3005, which removed the lifetime barriers for individuals to work at park districts. It's now a 7-year waiting period. Same with SB 42, which removed the lifetime barriers for individuals to work in the healthcare industry. And then we also, with HB 4515, what we did was we added another level to the healthcare workers registry, which really gives an individual an opportunity to really explain or show what rehabilitative steps have they taken post-incarceration. Prior to our work, if you had any sort of conviction, the registry would flag it and then you just wouldn't receive a call back. So now there's an opportunity for each individual to explain and say, look, this is the steps that I've taken to rehabilitate myself, and this is what I'm doing now, to really give them an opportunity to be hired to work in the healthcare industry. And so there is still so much work to do. And so things that you can do to join us, you can definitely visit our website at fullyfree.org, which also has the Never Fully Free report that was released in June of 2020. The website also has the virtual statewide launch event that you can go back and really watch to learn more about the campaign. If you would like for us to come out to give another presentation or host a lunch and learn, we're definitely willing to do that. And if you can also connect us with reentry organizations, anyone from the faith community, or any community organization or individuals that are interested in joining this coalition and helping us sort of drive change, we're open and willing to reach out and connect with those individuals. And the last thing that we said is this: just staying hopeful and continuing to have a dialogue and really pushing past a lot of the rhetoric that we've heard in the past about people with records. And so I will stop sharing my screen and I believe open it up for questions.
First of all, Marlon, I want to thank you for sharing. I really appreciate your expertise and getting out in the communities and educate our people on what's going on and what we go through. All I want to say is that me being a person just impacted, I never have had a problem finding a job or housing. My thing was sharing with people, worrying about what people say about me. And those are the things, the concerns I always had, is what people may say about me, because if I share it, then they're not going to want to be around me. So, and then the aspect, the whole thing of civil engagement, there's so many people, and you don't mind me sharing your testimony, but I heard you share your testimony one time that after being out of the system for so many years, you could not take your son on a field trip. And so things like that people don't have as being a convicted felon is civil engagement. And so that's so important to have. So I want to thank you for that. That being said, does anybody have any questions for Marlon of what questions you may have? Either put in the chat, you can raise your hand and we'll go from there. Susan?
Yeah, I have a question. I know you had the numbers at, for the whole state of Illinois. I would like to know, or I would like to see if we can find out how many numbers there are actually in McLean County to be able to look at the size and scope of what we're looking at in McLean County versus the entire state, just so make it a little bit smaller.
No, absolutely. That is something that I believe we have some data, but it's old, and I would have to check to see if McLean County was included. But absolutely, that is something that I would love to see as well, to really see like where we should be really focusing a lot of our time and energy.
Thanks, Susan.
How you doing? It's Linda. Appreciate your presentation, Marlon, and all your efforts, Toy, and everyone that's in this movement together. This has always been a problem. Folks that have gone through the process of paying their dues, and then yet and still for a lifetime, you're still paying for that same thing that you had already paid for. So I applaud you with all the efforts. It's something that the NAACP has been fighting for, to remove those barriers and discrimination. And for our community, that was a good question, Susan, about McLean County itself. We know that people with records normally don't get the jobs that they would prefer.
Mm-hmm.
And that even though they got the skills and the knowledge and the experience to do the work, that they just can't get in the door.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that the NAACP is fighting on is removing the box that you have to check to say that you have been incarcerated.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think that's one step to hopefully now you being able to share your story, you know, with the employer. But the other piece of it, how do we convince these employers to hire people? You know, and I know that COVID has kind of opened it up a little bit because they can't find nobody. You know, and so more and more folks are being hired, but how do we convince, you know, employers that individuals are willing and ready and able to do the job? You know, they just need a chance, you know, other than trying to build those relationships. And that's what we've done is kind of gone to those employers and say, look, you know, but you're only doing it one at a time. You know, this thing is bigger than that, you know. So, you know, thank you for all your efforts. The other piece is that, you know, we want people to be part of the opportunity to be a member of our community. And that's also mean, you know, being, you know, one of those 12 folks up there that's going to make decisions for others, freedom, you know. So a whole lot of stuff is being denied of individuals just because of that. So I think that, you know, globally looking at all of the pieces that go with, you know, all of these efforts that you guys have put together, you know, we got to get it to where we are making people whole.
No, absolutely. And I want to say this, a couple things as far as employers. We actually just had a meeting with the sort of like the head person for the Chicagoland Chamber of Commerce. And in that conversation, what we asked for was for a meeting with however many employers that he could pull together to just begin to have a conversation around permanent punishments and access and opportunities. And so to answer your question, our goal, even though like our sort of like goal is really removing the policy, is also to begin to engage employers and say, hey, this is what we're working on, but like, how can we open the door for individuals to not only not only to remove the policy, but to make sure that employers are following the policy and hiring people with records. So I would simply say is our goal is to engage even people who are in opposition, because we want to learn. We want to learn like why, like what is the why behind, like why don't you want to hire? And then if there's changes on our end that we need to make, then we can begin to do that. But I think ultimately the goal is really just to begin a dialogue to talk about like, how can we remove these barriers and really give people an opportunity to move forward? I would also say too, I think a lot of people really don't understand like what a permanent punishment actually, like what the impact of a permanent punishment can be on an individual's life. And so I was talking to somebody yesterday and we were just talking about a lot of focus is really put on like the re-entry sort of phases of when people come out. But there's a huge percentage of folks like myself and Toy and others who have been home for 3 to 5 to 7 to 9 years that have demonstrated that we're not going back, but we're still blocked out of sort of like this economic trajectory of really moving ourselves and our families out of poverty. And so for us, it's like, how do we begin to engage that population to say, like, why are we still creating this prison after the prison for individuals who have clearly demonstrated that they're not going back, and in most cases are leaders in their communities. And one of the data points that we didn't have is that there's a huge population of white folks that are impacted by permanent punishment. So this isn't a Black or brown or white issue. This is a human issue that we're saying, if you sentence me to do time, and I've completed my sentence on probation and parole and my jail time, why are you still blocking me from certain industries? And even when I think about some of the hard questions that I know people sort of juggle with around, well, what if this person committed a murder or a sex offense? There still should be a pathway to full citizenship, regardless of the conviction. And that is one of the things that when we think about strategy, we're thinking about, like, at the end, one of our end goals is to create pathways to full citizenship, or for a person's rights to be fully restored in spite of whatever the conviction is. And we have to figure out what that is, because I'm not suggesting that if you were convicted of a financial crime that you just should go be able to work in a bank. I'm just being realistic, but there has to be a pathway where if a person has been home for 5 years, 10 years, and this person has demonstrated that they've truly rehabilitated themselves and are a different person, then why are we still blocking people from opportunities and whatever that opportunity may be?
Now, Marlon, to that question, so in creating pathways, regardless of the crime that you were, retained or detained for, are you looking at different tiers based on, like, if you've been out for this long, or based on you served time for this? This is going to be, the pathways can't obviously all look similar. Are those the different tiers that you're looking at? Time not only spent in, but like you've been out for like 5 years. Okay, come on, and then also the crime. So we haven't decided the strategy yet. What I will say is that we're working with some consultants who are like currently sort of analyzing all of these statutes, and that data will be finished hopefully by mid-September. They sort of said by the end of the year. And so once the analysis is done, that's what's really going to inform like the the legislative strategy, the research that we want to create to really make the case for our vision of public safety. So we really won't know what the strategy is because we're still early on in really building out the campaign. But we've talked about like that's an area where we would be willing to compromise and saying like, hey, if we're saying we don't want to eliminate all of these permanent punishments, okay, but can we still talk about like what is that pathway? Like, let's talk about let's create a pathway so at least people can be hopeful and have something to push towards. And I would just say, when I was in prison and the Fair Sentencing Act passed, the institution where I was at, like the environment changed because people were hopeful that their sentence could be reduced. And that's the type of hope and encouragement we want to create in saying that there is a pathway. Like, I can see if it's 2 years, then I can see that, and I know what I need to do to be fully restored as a citizen and as a community member.
I wanted to be able to chime in really quickly. Thank you so much for this. Like, this is absolutely everything, and something that even before I was at Prairie State Legal Services, I kind of advocated for or just was very passionate about. One thing I would like to add is when we're thinking about like these strategies when going out to speak to these employers and things like that, I did originally find out that there are some incentives for employers to hire felons, so hire people with on Medicaid or Medicare, whatever, like disability. There were incentives. So I kind of led with that when I was working with Labyrinth, trying to get our women employed. But what I also learned was a lot of the employers were reluctant to hire people who had criminal backgrounds because it was the catastrophe. It was like the worst of the worst. Like, if they did this, then they'll do this, and they just haven't got caught doing it if they have this gap in it. And so I think what we need to do is provide a lot more education on what this looks like, and also be inclusive. I too have an issue with I had to be intentional and self-reflective with my thought processes when I say like, well, those who touch children or those who have these sex crimes and stuff like that, and I was excluding. And I had to also think that we also have a justice system that also wrongfully convict people, and then they also convict people who actually did this. So this movement has to be inclusive to all, regardless of how we feel about the crime that was committed or whatever. We cannot ask for one thing to be forgiven and for the other not to be. We just need to have a more restorative type of program to assist with those things. So I just wanted to say thank you with what you're doing, and just be able to reach out to us. I'm telling you, it's a lot of us just like on the ground, underground, on top of the world. I'm trying to get this figured out and willing to like break our necks and backs to try to help you with this program. But thank you so much for everything that you all are doing. I just wanted to add that part.
No, thank you. And I love the energy. I'm ready to drive to Bloomington right now.
I know, right? You got to bring it on in, baby, because this energy is everything, and it stays consistent. You should see me when I'm advocating for a client. Woo!
One of the things that I've talked to Toy about, and Toy wanted me to present to this group first, is that what we've been doing is we've sort of planned a couple like fully free campaign launch events around the state. We actually have one coming up in Peoria, Illinois on August 14th, and we have one on the 21st. And basically these events are, we do a press conference to sort of introduce the campaign to the community. We have folks from let's say from Peoria. We have leaders that are going to speak on behalf of the campaign. We have elected officials that have committed to come out and publicly endorse and support the campaign. And then after the press conference, we have a community event where we have free food, t-shirts, we have materials, and we invite different stakeholders from the community to really come out to share resources to the community, to let them know about like a lot of the resources that are there. And it's not me coming, like I'm here to support the folks in Peoria and Champaign and all of the other cities, but we offer like whatever supports are needed. Like we provide a messaging toolkit, a press advisory. We help in like whatever capacities the different organizations, like they need our help. But really, it's really about just getting the word out and trying to educate as many people as possible around what is a permanent punishment, and then also communicating our strategy that we believe could really help us sort of eliminate these permanent punishments. And then it also gives people in the community an opportunity to see that you're not alone, that you are not the only directly impacted person, that it's okay, and that we are not these evil people that people sort of like portray in the media, that these are normal, everyday people. When I think about 3.3 million people, that's a lot of people. And so these are people who are our neighbors, who are our colleagues, they go to school with us. And so we really want to demonstrate and show people that you don't have to be ashamed, and that we want people to join this coalition to really help us continue to get the word out and really ultimately eliminate these permanent punishments. And so we could do something like that in Bloomington Normal if people are willing and want to. We're
willing, and we want it.
Right. I also want to chime in just to say thank you so much, Marlon, and to also put a highlight also on not only the education and jobs and housing, that it's a burial, but also when people are getting out of prison or treatment centers and they are just wanting to go somewhere and volunteer, you know, just to enter into a facility to volunteer. Your background also follows you with that too, just wanting to give back to their community. So I just wanted to add that to the list as well, that follows them. And usually maybe some character letters, or if they can show their own pathway, but that's not always all the time good enough neither.
No, absolutely. I think Toy shared a couple of weeks ago, right before my son ended first grade, his teacher reached out to me because they see that I'm engaged in my son's education. They wanted me to chaperone him and some of his schoolmates to a bowling alley. And when they did the background check, they said that I could not chaperone him. And my conviction is over 25 years, and it has nothing to do with anything related to schools or children, but they denied me that opportunity. And another permanent punishment that we've learned about that has nothing to do with public safety. If anybody has any conviction, you are prohibited from acting as the executor or administrator over your family member's will. And so if somebody in your family passes away and you're the next kin, you are prohibited from really being sort of like the executor and really handling that person's affairs, which that has nothing to do with public safety. And so we're learning as we continue to do this analysis on how a lot of these laws really don't make sense and they're not creating public safety.
So yeah, I personally would love to be some kind of part of, I don't know, building that for people, like do this and do that to build character, to build credit, to build, to be seen differently by the people that they need to be seen differently from.
Absolutely.
And
somebody asked, go ahead. Go ahead, Angie.
Toy, I was doing the same thing.
Go ahead.
We have two questions in the chat box.
Go ahead.
From Taylor. Is that, Marlon, to your point, that conviction, is that felony or misdemeanor that it's anything?
It's felony. Any felony.
Any felony.
Any felony.
And then the question from Feely, I'm sorry about that. And I know you very well. Is the box in the job application asking if the applicant had a criminal record been removed?
So that I don't know. I believe so, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
Because even when I think about ban the box, I think about that as being just a band-aid, because even if I'm allowed for an interview, a person can still say, well, I gave them an interview. But that doesn't necessarily sort of guarantee that if I have the skills for the job that I'm going to get it. And then it's hard to hold folks accountable because if, let's say, for instance, they do look at your record and discriminate against you. We've had some issues as far as just like the implementation of a lot of laws that have been in place as far as who holds who accountable if a person feels like they've been denied an opportunity because of their record. So I'm not sure around like the ban the box. I believe it has been removed. But I know a couple of years ago, we had a bill where we were fighting to have the box removed from college applications. And I have my colleague, Willette Benford, who is the board chair of the Fully Free campaign and also the decarceration organizer for Live Free, who just jumped on. So she can help me with some of the questions as well.
I think when Labyrinth was still, when we started it, maybe a couple of years ago, that box was very, very important because, as you know, when the employer looks at the application, all they do is look at that box, and then the application goes to the garbage, can, and so I believe that has been removed, here in Illinois. But again, there's so many that are still barriers, for the formerly incarcerated individuals to live, a better life, So.
There are some exceptions, if you're applying to work with young people, daycares, law enforcement. So it's still there for that.
Yeah.
Schools.
Yes, you're right, Linda.
It is. There are some exceptions. Sometimes healthcare.
Yeah, especially if the conviction was related to sexual, violation of children and things like that. So But trades and labor is a place where they don't discriminate. They will accept you. Thank you.
And even some of the laws barring healthcare and things like that have been removed because a lot of times, you know, those are some of the barriers, licensing barriers, where say someone wants to be a phlebotomist or, you know, CNA and things like that. You know, some of those laws have been revised because, you know, when people go maybe have a crime, but that isn't in keeping with the licensing opportunity that they would like to apply for. And so it has nothing to do with that field. And that is another part of the Fully Free campaign. Certain licensing opportunities shouldn't be denied someone because they have a felony conviction. You know, when someone has completed their sentence and done their time, they should be allowed to re-enter society with dignity and also be able to get a livable wage. Because when you set people up for success and allow them to make a livable wage, then you don't have to worry about certain things. It's certain things we are concerned about when you don't allow people to do that. When you don't allow people to re-enter society, make a livable wage, and begin to rebuild their lives, because then they're relegated to a second citizen status. Mm-hmm. And therefore, just say, for instance, if a young mother can't feed her children, you know, because she can't get a job or she can't get housing, you know, then poverty is criminalized. So we, you know, we think about the different layers that cause people to have, you know, felony convictions. And even with the racism part of the report, Black women make up 14% of the Illinois adult population, but over a third of those incarcerated and convicted of a crime. And not because they commit more crimes, it's because sometimes poverty is criminalized. And then they end up in prison, you know, because for low-level crimes that are eventually turned into felonies.
Yeah, as far as the question in the chat, I don't have the list of opportunities that, as far as like that the waiver will give you access to. I just know, I know in the past, the way the registry was set up, if you had a conviction, it would flag you with, literally, it would be a red flag that would flag that you have a record, and then there would just be no response. And so now it gives you an opportunity to at least explain like what rehabilitative like steps have you taken to apply for a healthcare waiver. But I'm not sure like what's the cutoff on what the waiver can actually gain you access to in regards to employment. But I'm glad Toy said what he said too about just like the folks, and this is not to invalidate or discount the folks who come home and somehow end up cycling back into the system. I think to me, the population that's missed are the people like myself and Willette and Toy who have been out and have demonstrated that like, I'm living a completely different life. I'm married, I own my own home, I'm in school, like, and I can continue, but it's like, why are you still like, why do you still have these barriers in place? Like basically like telling the community that these laws are in place to keep the community safer when that's not true. And I've also seen is that when you give myself and others an opportunity to go back to reach those individuals that are coming out, like I still remember the people who encouraged me in prison, because like what we don't talk about is a lot of like the fact that there's no programming in prison, and that a lot of times it's the people you do time with who invest time and energy in each other to help you, you know, really rehabilitate yourself. And so when folks come home, that becomes my support group. Everybody that I was incarcerated with, I still talk to, and I consider them family. And all of us are doing great, but you don't hear those stories. You only hear about the person who's been in and out. And then even in those situations, a lot of times if I feel hopeless, then I'm going to resort back to what I know. And so it's about really giving people an opportunity to not make an excuse. to say like, now there are no excuses. There are jobs available. There are opportunities available to where people can be encouraged to figure out and dream. Like, what do you want to do? Like, what do you want to be as a kid? What did you think about would be like a profession that you would love to do? And really be able to pursue your dreams means a lot.
Ooh, Marlon, you honed in on exactly. I love your passion. Thank you for bringing such a wealth of knowledge to myself and the group in general. So now thinking back when you've launched this in other communities like Champaign or Peoria, for our group right here, right now, what is some low-hanging fruit, or what, as we try to strategize how we can start doing anything here in McLean County, what do you recommend that we start discussing that our agencies or ourselves can start doing now?
So I would identify like clients or people that you know that are directly impacted that you think could be potential leaders in this work. What I didn't talk about is we also have a governing board that is comprised of all directly impacted people. And the goal of the governing board is really to make an investment. This is a paid position. So we're not asking folks to volunteer. This is a paid position where they're paid for a 6-month term. And really we're paying people to really make an investment in them. And so if there are individuals in Bloomington Normal that you've identified as potential leaders, we would love to connect with them, and we would want to meet with them to see, is this something that they would be willing to lead and support? And then this community could act as supporters to them.
Thanks, Marlon. Thanks, Marlon. I appreciate
And Angie, what we really always want to do is center people that are directly impacted in leadership. You know, that directly impacted individuals would always be leading the work in Fully Free. That is one of our guiding principles. And so anybody that you know that, and even people that may have struggled, sometimes it's a place where people just need to feel like I have a purpose in something. So, you know, that kind of can motivate someone. So keep people like that in mind also.
Thank you, Willette. Oh, I'm sorry, Toy, really. Okay. And I was gonna say, hello, it's nice to see you again, Willette. And then my last question, sorry, Toy, then I'll let you take it over.
No, you go ahead.
When you say center, we want to center people that have been directly impacted in leadership roles. We say directly impacted themselves or family members or friends. Okay.
Themselves, but you know, also, even if they have family members that's been incarcerated, you know, those people are welcome to join the Fully Free campaign too, because, you know, there are like 3.3 million people in Illinois with an arrest or a conviction. Just think how much power that would be when all of us come together to speak about eradicating laws and barriers that affect our lives every day. So anybody that has been incarcerated, directly impacted family members, themselves, it doesn't matter.
You give me chills, Will. I must be the means with you. Thank you.
I would quickly say too, it's not necessarily about numbers either. So let's say this group says we've identified 2 people that we think would be interested. It's about saying, how do we invest in those 2 people? And then this would be a support group to those 2 individuals. So we also would bring, what we've been doing is we offer a stipend of $500, and that could be used for food, barbecue, a DJ, a photographer, whatever that respective community needs. So if these 2 individuals say, we want to do this, we would say, okay, here's the resources that we have available. We have free t-shirts. We offer the $500 stipend. We would bring whatever materials needed. So these 2 individuals would have an opportunity to learn, like, how do you do outreach to the media? Like, why is it important to make sure your messaging is on point? Like how can we do outreach to community organizations? So there's a set of skills that they would learn even throughout the entire process, where we would reach out to our elected officials and sit down and say, we want you to come out and support this. And this group would really wrap our arms around them to support them, in hopes of, as other people, when other people sort of see this, we hope that people say, hey, what do you do? Like, how did you get connected to that? Or what does that shirt mean? And then that's a great opportunity to invite people in.
That's what thank you, Marlon, for sharing. And I just want to elaborate, let the council members know, this is the reason why I brought Marlon on, not just because to talk about the Fully Free campaign, but how important reentry is in the community. Because reentry is important to let you know what some of the men and women go through when they get out, if they don't have the valuable resources that they need to get over that hump. So Marlon, that being said, since you launched the Freely campaign and prior to the Freely campaign, educating the community on what we do in the community, do you think that's going to be a good impact to help reduce recidivism in communities?
Absolutely. And I know Willette and Toy, you can attest to this. I would love and we're looking at how we could develop research, but what we've discovered is that in most cases, when people that have been incarcerated, been a part of the system, get involved in this work, the recidivism rate, I believe, I would say I've probably seen one person go back. And what happens is you begin to learn how to advocate for yourself in a different way. I don't yell and scream at people, but I know how to advocate for myself. I know how to be relentless and leverage the relationships that I've built within my community to help support me. So we also look at like as people engage in this work, we also become a support network for each other. So there are plenty nights when Willette and myself, or Willette is at our house, where we're just talking about things as they happen in real-time moments. So this work is not just about the policy, but it's also about being able to see people evolve as they continue in this work, which is, to me, one of my most favorite things, because I've seen it. Like, I have a lot of people that, as an organizer, I remember when I first met Quentin Williams, who's now a doctor and works for a foundation, a funding in philanthropy. But when I met him, we met because he just wanted his record sealed. And from that relationship, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, we kept building. And look where he is now. I met Willette. I was on a Zoom call and I heard Willette speak, and I was like, I need to know her. And I connected with Willette, and now Willette works for my wife. So even throughout this process, as we connect with individuals and build these relationships, I want to be able to connect people. I am a scouter of talent. And so when I see talent, I'm going to build with you, and I'm going to help you find, like, where can this person fit in based on what they want to do. So absolutely, Toy, like, I believe and I would also say this, in most cases, and when I was doing violence prevention work, we used to go after people who were non-service seekers, meaning these individuals were not looking for services, and we would go out in the streets and walk up to them and say, hey, I want to offer you a job. And in most cases, we would get cussed out, and we would stand there and say, now that you finished cussing me out, will you take this job or not? And at that point, they may say no, but we would come back because our strategy was relentless engagement. So we would take a piece of paper with an address on it and go find you, and then continuously like engage you until you said yes. And so for me, that's the approach that I'm taking. The first time you may say, I don't have time for this, but I'm going to circle back again and say, hey, listen, I know you said you didn't have time before, but like, we want to offer you an opportunity to really expand your support network, but also identify talent and really invest in that talent so that people can see that we care. Because in most cases, people are used to you just saying, or used to people just saying, oh, they don't want to do nothing. Like, they don't want a job. They don't want to do nothing. So our approach is, like, we're going to continue to relentlessly engage you until you say, yes, let me just come to a meeting and check out what y'all doing. And then in most cases, when people see that, people feel like, no, this is something different. Like, I want to be a part of this. Like, here's a couple t-shirts and you don't owe me anything. Like, people are not used to that. And I would say this, Toy, that my hope is not that people get involved just to do fully free work. This isn't about, I give you something, now you have to do something for me. This is about, I just want to see you do something and get involved in the game. And if you decide that you want to go join a different table, great. And we're still going to support you. Like, it doesn't matter to me. You can join the Alliance, you can join all of these different coalitions. I will be happy to be in Zoom meetings, know that I saw this person a couple of weeks ago, a couple of months ago, now actively involved and working to help change policy, or either working for a reentry organization that's now providing services to other people.
Thank you. Any other questions anybody have out there that Marlon probably can answer?
And I see Becky on the call, who's also a part of PLP and is a part of Fully Free as well. So hello, Becky.
Well, Marlon, I don't think there's any, did someone have another question?
I have a question. I just had a quick,
Yes.
and so from a family experience, my oldest brother has schizoaffective, and he's done extremely well over the past decade, 15 years. But when he has been, there's been twice where he was very, very ill and very delusional. And during one of those times, he got in trouble like at age 30, and like age 45, a couple of years ago, he stopped taking his medicine, became very, very psychotic, delusional, very sick. And he got in criminal trouble. He thought his neighbor was trying to kill him. And so he did get in trouble again. So this was the second time. Each time he's off of his medicine, getting in trouble. And so for my brother, and I know, and I also worked in corrections for a lot of years, but this is, more of a personal story than like with my work, than a work story. But I know with him too, like in his situation, because of his mental illness, he really doesn't function in a work environment. He does really well to just be able to kind of like do his main functioning, to get through the day. And he just has really, poor social skills. And it's just a challenge for him to he's still very paranoid, but he's doing well enough. But then like part of his punishment too is then he cannot get any support for housing, or he like a lot of the things that he needs to be able to live, like they take that away from him. And so and even when he left jail, and this wasn't McLean County, but even when he left jail, he was set up to fail because they gave him a prescription for his medication that wasn't able to be used at the pharmacy because the doctor didn't sign it. And so thank goodness for him, he has us still, and he has my dad that is like extremely supportive of him. And if it wasn't for him having that family support, if it was just, his family had cut him off, or it was just legal support, like he would be in prison. And so he has to have that. And unfortunately, like so many people do not have that family support, or, my brother's, I don't even know how old he is, 48, 49. And by that point in life, a lot of people, their family has just, said, I just can't do it anymore. But anyways, so I think that, sometimes there's just so much stigma around this issue, and people are like, well, just don't commit a crime. Like, like you shouldn't have done that anyways. And, it's not as black and white as that. It's not, we all, make mistakes, or we all have challenges. We all have obstacles. And some people, unfortunately, like have even more challenges. And so I think like this is really cool work and things that need to be done. But anyway, so I appreciate all of your what you're doing and trying to move that into McLean County and other closer counties, because like this system just does not, like you said, it's not even it's about humanity, and sometimes it doesn't even support humanity. But the last thing I will say, and I promise this, I'm sorry I talk a lot, but the last thing that I will say is, so my brother, gosh, it was 2 years ago, and he was in jail, and I remember just fighting with those people they thought he was faking his mental illness. and he was just so sick, and he couldn't talk for himself. He also has a learning disability. He has a very hard time reading and writing, and it was just so horrific. It was just so horrific as his sister, and he was just so out of it. He was so sick. But moving 2 years forward with family support, and he hates gel, and so he does not like it there, and he wants to continue to take his medication, and I'm very hopeful he'll continue to take his medication. But he's buying his own house. He's independently. He's still super paranoid, or you gotta watch what you say on the phone. But for him and his condition, because support exists, and he's just he's doing his thing and living his life. So if the appropriate support is in place, people can do really amazing things. And I think that's what you guys are trying to do is, what supports can we put in place, like take away these barriers, and then what supports can we put in place to make sure people can actually, do them and live their life. So anyways, thank you.
No,
Thank you, Amy.
Yeah. And don't we all agree that Amy had a great pitch for being one of our potential leaders in McLean County? I think that was a great pitch.
Absolutely. and thank you, Amy, for providing context.
I'm retracting all of my statements. Like, Angie is always bossing me around. She's always telling me what to do and bossing me around. I'm retracting everything.
Say passion, right, Marlon, Willa, and Gaynette?
Yes.
Everyone,
those stories is what they need to hear. Yes.
Absolutely, because I think that provides context as to like what's happening. And I would also say one of the unique things about this campaign is that we're open to where people can show up in whatever their gift is. And what I mean by that is, if you're an artist, if you can produce art that shows like what you think it means to be fully free, we want to use that in the campaign. If you rap, if you write poems, whatever you do, we're gonna find space for you for your voice to be amplified in this work. There is no, you can only do this. Like whatever your talent and gift may be, we welcome you to be a part of this work and this movement.
Amen. Amen. Well, I just want to say, Marlon, thank you so much for coming on to share with us. And council members, we're looking to launch a fully free campaign in McLean County, Labor Day weekend. And I need all the council members' input. That's why I have Marlon come and present, because this is something that I want to bring to McLean County, but I can't do it by myself. So I want to involve everybody to what can we do as the McLean County Reentry Council to bring something like this to McLean County. Like he said, we're coming to educate our community like he educated us. It's some things, and Marlon don't know, the last year he's been a mentor to me, because some of the things I didn't know about myself and what's going on in the community. I've been a part of this McLean County community for 20 years. And this is something that I always wanted to bring to this community. Yes, I was involved in the community, but what can we do to get others involved? So whether you've been just as impacted or not, we want to bring you on the board to help us push this campaign so we can help educate others in the community. So me, myself, Angie, Vera, Kara, and Don, we're going to be getting a hold of you to see what you can do to help us push this campaign. And not only that, we're looking to bring others on what we do on our committee. So if you want to be a part of our steering committee to help us make decisions that happen before the meeting, after the meeting, or just McLean County, period, we want to have you on. So send us an email to let us know that you want to be a part of what we do. So that being said, Angie, Don, or Kara, if you have a last minute word, I know we're only got a couple minutes left, but I just wanted to say that because I think this is important for our community as a whole, whether you've been just as impacted or not.
I just want to say this has been very, very, very good. And Like, I feel like I am just on fire, especially when it comes to, I'll take it personal too, because this is my community, community I lived in all my life. I went to prison twice from this community and back, and doing very well in life today. And I've always been a taker. And I'm just ready to give back wherever I can to this community. I'm just ready to give back, like, yeah, so
Can
much is
I-
needed.
Vera, sorry for interrupting. I also want to say that at the library, we want to give you a platform, a space to speak. And so we would like to help in that way to make sure that you have a place, a public place that you can speak. And then also, we did meet with Jackie at the McLean County Jail, and we may not be able to impact the policy itself, but we would like to help the people in the jail and things that we're working on. We can't, absolutely guarantee all these things, but computer classes in the jail, computer classes on BPL resources that are available, get everybody in there a library card so that they have that before they leave. They can be accessing, possibly downloading, depending on Jackie's perspective there and what their rules are, donating books from the library, having a resources landing page on our website. So anyone can have access to that just by going to our website, library card or not, and on where to go for blank. What are the location and hours of the place you need to visit? Who do you need to talk to? Do you need an appointment? What you need to take with you? So if you need a driver's license, a birth certificate, things like that. And also in helping with that, we would like to have possibly a once a month resource fair here at the library, and invite the DMV, Prairie State Legal to do expungement, Having Integrity for counseling, Chestnut for counseling with maybe jobs and helping with whatever area. And just to let you know, I did add on there, what can we do about prescriptions? And so just trying to see what is needed and try to address that and be just a location for a voice, for you to have a voice.
Amazing. Thank you, Michelle.
Yes, thank you, Michelle. Appreciate it. Go ahead, Angie.
Thank you. So you always see what I'm about to talk.
Go ahead.
And to Willette's point, I know Michelle's talked about a reentry guide to make that seamless transition. And it's like, hey, here, to offer some awareness. And then also, Jackie and I, a while back ago in January, we're talking about a backpack initiative. So to keep backpacks with basic toiletries and things in a repository at different places. So when people are leaving or coming out, they have something that they can call their own. And so maybe the library can be another repository. So we can look at that as well.
Thank you. Kara or Don, you guys are I see you guys as the founder of this. Before we go, did you guys want to add something?
I think I'm good. I feel like we need to end it on the note that we are ending it on. You all are just so amazing. And I'm so excited. Thank you, Marlon, so much for coming today. I feel like I learned so much, and for everyone else who spoke up. I love the energy. I wish we could all be in a room together, because I just can't imagine what that energy would really feel like. But my dog and I are feeling it here. So thank you, everyone, so much.
Angie, you want to take us out?
Sure. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I am energized. This has been a great meeting. a lot of great conversation, information, and some of the action items I took is I know Amy wants to be one of our lead council members for the initiative here in McLean County. And there's a few others that will be a part of that. I know Amy, but oh, and hi Eddie. Thank you, Eddie, for joining us. And other than that, I hope everyone has a great weekend. And really quick, Grady's tonight from 6 to 8. Come say you're with Chestnut, the ROSC. I am, not me personally, the grant is paying for a family sober recreation evening at Grady's from 6 to 8. So I'll see everyone there.
Thank you, everybody. You guys have a good evening. We'll be in touch with you. More information about our upcoming campaign here that's going to happen on Labor Day. Talk to you later. Thank you for tuning in.